After Ulster's liberation, Leif sets his sights on Munster. Making it there requires that they cross River Thia. While the river serves as a bountiful resource, it also serves as a common battleground. Unfortunately for Leif, the river is notoriously easy to defend and near impossible to attack. Chapter 22, Beyond the River, is not exactly a fun map to play through. When you try to tackle it head-on, you get swarmed by ballistas and mounted units, and to top it off, you get quadrupled by that guy from the gacha game. Because of this, most people just opt to warp skip. Kaga was even so kind as to provide a warp staff in a village near your spawn. Kohen, the boss of this map, doesn't put up much of a fight, so this strategy is even easier. When looking at it like this, I don't think it's a stretch to call this map poorly designed. There's a lot of build-up to the battle at River Thia. It's where Leif's grandfather was murdered by Raedric, and it's where you finally get to face off against General Reinhardt, an antagonist who's been a major factor in the stories of Olwen and Kempf. So much is riding on this chapter story-wise, but in terms of gameplay, it really stumbles. It's either a frustrating slog or a map you'll skip through and forget about. I think stopping here, though, does this map a disservice. Chapter 22 of Fire Emblem Thracia 7-76 encourages the player to utilize one of two disparate strategies, each of which reinforces the game's themes. As mentioned already, if you approach this chapter conventionally and without the foreknowledge of what awaits, you're in for a bloodbath. The Ballista and Siege tomes, along with Sias and Cohen's status saves, are incredibly unforgiving. If that doesn't do you in, then the legions of Mage Knights, Arch Knights, and other reinforcements definitely will. There's also like 50 leadership stars. Even if you avoid any and all casualties on your side, the enemy still faces catastrophic losses. There are 46 enemy units on the map to begin with, and upwards of 40 additional reinforcements. If you plan to reach the siege point, all these people will die. Well, I guess you could spare some ballista if you're feeling merciful. And that's not even taking into consideration that battles in Fire Emblem are abstractions. Sure, there are only 46 units on the map, but there are way more than just those 46 people participating in this battle. Augustus wasn't exaggerating when he said the river would be stained red. There's also this map's bosses, Cohen, Sias, and Reinhardt. All three of these men are in some way trapped in this battle, and in the end, Sias is the only one who survives. Cohen is Sias' grandfather, and we learn of how much he struggled to protect his grandson. Despite his contempt for Manfroy and Julius, he stays in the battle to ensure not only the continuation of Fjalar's bloodline, but the survival of his last kin. When Leif's army makes it past the bridge, he'll force Sias to leave, having accepted that the battle is lost and resigning himself to death. Sias is obliged to participate because he's the top tactician of House Valthomer and has to be careful not to raise any suspicion. His Fjalar blood makes him a threat to Manfroy, so the Lopt sect will take any opportunity to kill him. Before the map begins, Reinhardt muses on how both Ishtar and Olwen have seemed to abandon him. Ishtar is reigning alongside Julius, while Olwen has defected to Leif's army. He feels that he is unable to make a decision on where he stands because, no matter what he does, he'll betray someone dear to him. Spoken to by Olwen, he'll give her a brave sword that's effective against cavalry. This is his final decision, to be killed by Olwen so he doesn't have to betray either her or Ishtar. All three of these characters are shown to be honorable people with strong moral compasses, even if they do have quite a few character flaws. But despite that, Cohen and Reinhardt still meet their ends at this river, all for the sake of trying to secure Frisia's foothold in Thracia. It's all for nothing though. Leif still wins, Frisia is still pushed out from Thracia. Reinhardt, Cohen, and all these other soldiers died for nothing. Augustus says that wise men only spill blood for a worthy cause, for it can't be returned. From Leif's perspective, this was worthy. He's now one step closer to liberating his homeland. From the enemy's perspective though, they gave up their lives in an unsuccessful campaign for a country that didn't care about them. An interesting fact about the River Thracia is that it can actually be seen in Chapter 8 of FE4, wherein it takes up a grand total of 2 tiles. This is part of how Chapter 22 reinforces FE5's themes. FE4 focused on a large-scale continent-spanning conflict, while FE5 goes for a more intimate, smaller-scale look at war. Sympathetic villains certainly exist in FE4, but it never gives generic bosses who show up once a time of day like Cohen gets. In doing this, I think the game really drives home the fact that the true extent of anguish caused by war is unimaginable. All of this happened on 2 tiles in a map which contains several thousands, but all the aforementioned bloodshed doesn't have to happen. If you warp, you can just kill Cohen and seize on turn 1. Hell, if you can capture him, you can finish this map with no deaths. Like I said, this strategy is facilitated through a warp staff provided in a nearby village. Another of FE5's main themes is that in war, playing fair will get you nothing. It's reinforced by the capture mechanic, requiring that you get most of your equipment by looting it off captured enemies rather than buying it at armories. It's reinforced when you spend multiple chapters running from enemies that you can't possibly fight, and it's reinforced when a strategy that utilizes underhanded tactics is the strategy that results in the least amount of deaths. And why should you play fair? At one point in the map, Sias will have the bridge closed behind you to prevent retreat. They clearly have no interest in a fair fight, so why would you? This chapter also supports the idea that people should band together to fight back against oppressive regimes like Frege. Leif's army is a lot more ragtag than that of past lords. His party has bandits and rebels and thieves and former cultists. Kern took part in human trafficking. You think Marth would have been cool with that? Leif had to work with anyone he could just to stand a chance at survival. Here in Chapter 22, he does just that by accepting the warp staff and bringing the battle to a swift end. Beyond the River showcases 2 of FE5's main themes, that there is no honor to be found in war and that unity among the common man is important. Either way you choose to approach this map, these themes are reinforced. This can be through either making you experience the brutality and unfairness of warfare, or through showing you that freedom is not won through fair strategy and instead comes from people working together to fight back.